Can you imagine knowing that soon, within days, you would not be around and would succumb to a terrifying and painful death? The thought of death being on the horizon must be psychological torture and horror, but throughout the centuries, this was utilised by some governments and rulers to torment someone who was sentenced to death. With this in mind, execution methods were devised that focused on someone knowing that their death would soon be coming, as there was no escape from their ordeal. In London during the medieval times, it was common for a Londoner to walk down the streets and see cages hanging from buildings, containing the remains of someone who had been sentenced to death and gibbeted. This was a death sentence by being exposed to the elements, and someone would be locked inside of the iron cage until they died from starvation or other means, and their body would then be picked at by the birds. But inside of Asia there was an execution method known as a Cangue, which was devised with the terror in mind that the sufferer would soon be succumbing to their ordeal. Welcome to That's Grim. To support our channel, make sure to click subscribe. Known also as the Jia, the Cangue was a torture and also execution device which was used inside of a number of different countries within Asia. It was used a lot more recently than you would imagine, as there were accounts of this treatment happening in the 20th century. The Cangue was a device that locked the prisoner's head inside the device and also limited their movement, and they were often chained up as well. There were different Cangues. The most common was a large heavy wooden board which was secured around the neck of someone, and their head poked through the device. Often it was made from two pieces, which then locked the head into position, meaning they could not get out as the parts were locked in together. Inside of the Cangue, the sufferer could breathe, but they could not feed themselves or give themselves a drink of water. The point of this was that the prisoner would succumb to starvation or dehydration, and they knew they would be dead because of the device. There was no escaping it, and it was used as a death sentence for prisoners who committed very serious crimes, but could also be used for torture, and the victim could be released if they gave some form of information over, or if they had been sentenced to this treatment for a limited period of time as punishment. It was also a form of public humiliation, and if someone was chained up in the Cangue in public, then many people would pass them by and mock them, but there were some accounts of people being spared, and also their death ordeals prolonged, as the kindness of the public kept them alive, and some people did feed them. This was frowned upon, and sometimes prisoners being manacled and chained prevented someone from feeding them. Inside of the Great Ming legal code of the 1300s, there were a number of rules written for the punishment and execution method, and this was claimed that the wood should weigh up to 15 kilograms, and that for more serious crimes the heavier boards should be used, making the suffering much worse. It was a method which could cause serious disfigurement, and weight was often added to the board around the neck, which would add further pain. There was an execution variant specifically of the Cangue, and the sufferer was condemned straight away with this. The device would be at times put on the top of a cage, and the sufferer could not touch the ground with their feet. Because of this, the victim was forced to stand without pressure on their neck, but when the support was taken away, the device would strangle them. It was also common as a method of religious contemplation, as some people wore the boards of the Cangue to punish themselves for their sins, and they believed their God would be pleased with this form of apology. There were a few execution methods across history used which combined psychological terror and also physical horror and suffering, and the Cangue was one of these. It was also a torture method, and the thought that someone locked in the device knew that their death was coming, as they were wasting away, so starving and suffering from their ordeal would have been brutal and very rough. Thanks for watching. To support That's Grim, please click subscribe down below, as it really does help. And once again, thanks for watching.